Hi, everyone. I'm John McDougall, and I'm from McDougall Interactive. Welcome to today's webinar. This is the third part in our series, How to Develop an Effective Law Firm Content Marketing and SEO Action Plan for 2021. Our third part today will be focused on how to start a successful podcast and optimize your YouTube channel. And it features John Marr of McDougall Interactive and Rachel Popa of the National Law Review. And before we get started, I'd like to just give you a few items to know how to participate in today's event. You should see the GoToWebinar control panel on your desktop in the upper right corner. You may need to click the orange arrow button to expand it. You're listening in using your speaker system by default, but if you'd prefer to join over the phone, select telephone in the audio pane, and the dial-in information will be displayed. And you'll have the opportunity to submit questions to presenters by typing your questions into the questions pane in the control panel. You can send in your questions at any time, and we'll have time for a couple questions during the presentation and at the end as well. And now I'd like to introduce John Marr.
All right, thanks, John. And first, let me tell you a little bit about myself, everyone. My name is John Marr, and I'm the VP of Multimedia and Digital Marketing at McDougall Interactive. And I have over 15 years of experience in search engine optimization and digital marketing. I'm a recording and podcast engineer, as well as being a video editor and YouTube optimizer. I'm also a musician, so I've had some experience with recording from that, and I've worked at WEZE Radio in Boston, which gave me a lot of experience with on-air work and advertising, writing commercial spots, and even writing jingles. Rachel?
Thanks, John. Hi, my name is Rachel Popa, and I work at the National Law Review as a web content specialist. A big part of my job is optimizing submissions for our clients, including podcasts and videos, and helping them get the most out of their content. Before I joined the NLR, I worked as a reporter for a healthcare media company here in Chicago called Becker's Healthcare, and I was an editor of Chicago Women Magazine, and I'm excited to talk about podcasts today.
All right, so let's begin with how to start a successful podcast. So what is podcasting? Well, podcasting comes from the words iPod and broadcasting, and it's an audio recording like a radio show. It's available for download or streaming from a website, and it's usually also downloadable automatically via RSS, which is really the pod part of podcasting. You might remember RSS. It stands for Really Simple Syndication. It's a web feed that allows users and applications to access updates to websites. And the symbol for RSS is still used as a blog symbol these days because people used to subscribe to a blog RSS feed using a feed reader tool so that you could get any updates from all of the blogs you were following in a single stream. People don't really do that as much anymore, but RSS is still used for subscribing to podcasts. So why should you podcast? Podcasting has a lot less competition than blogging and video. There are over 570 million blogs with 7 million posts daily. And on YouTube, there are over 500 hours of video added every minute. But there are only about 850,000 podcasts. That might still seem like a large number, but in comparison to the number of blogs and videos, it's actually quite small. Although it's growing rapidly, that number was about 500,000 podcasts just a year or two ago. Smartphones make podcasts accessible to millions of people. We're now at the point where 32% of Americans listen to a podcast at least monthly. You're able to listen to podcasts while you're at work, while you're driving, while you're running, while you're at the gym. I like to listen to podcasts while I'm washing the dishes and doing yard work. So unlike video where you generally need to be engaged in watching your screen, you can listen to a podcast anywhere at any time. Additionally, your voice really connects you personally to your audience. You're literally in their ears talking to them directly, and that can be really powerful. It can also connect you with experts and influencers in your industry. It's really easy to reach out to other experts and invite them to be a guest on your podcast, and almost all of the time people will say yes. That boosts your influence, and it can help connect your podcast to a whole new audience. In 2019, over 50% of the US population over the age of 12 had listened to a podcast at least some point. And as I said before, about a third of Americans listen on a monthly basis. Tying this into search engine optimization, podcasts can now appear directly in Google search results. You can see in this example the podcasts section displayed after a couple of standard Google search results. Podcasts don't even have to be on the Google Podcast Network for this to work. Even if they're just on Apple iTunes podcasts, they can show up in this carousel. So what makes a good podcast? Well, in general, I tell people to have a narrow focus and not go too broad, where it can be difficult to find an audience who stays interested in all of your episodes if you're kind of skipping all over the place from topic to topic. But on the other hand, making your focus too narrow can cut your potential audience. So you do want to achieve a bit of a balance there. You also want to have great content, and you want that content to add value for the listener. And finally, audio quality, good audio quality is essential, especially because many people listen with headphones on. Audio that's hard to hear or which sounds like you recorded it in your bathroom will make it difficult for your audience to stick around and listen. So what equipment do you need to get started? Well, one of the basic ways is to use a digital recorder like this one with a built-in microphone. You can just hold this or you place it on the table in front of you and speak into it. You can make that a little bit better by including external microphones, so you can place the microphone close to your mouth, which helps to eliminate any background noises. An even easier option is to use your smartphone that you probably already have. These are a few of the apps that are available for the iPhone, some of which can not only record, but in some cases also edit your podcast right on your phone. A sort of intermediate solution would be to use a USB microphone that you plug into your computer and software to do your recording and editing. Here I've shown the Rode Podcaster USB microphone, which can plug directly into your computer. And then you can use an audio interface also like this Focusrite Scarlett Solo, which allows you to plug any professional microphone into your computer. With either of those microphone options, you can use software like this free Audacity recorder and editor, or a cloud solution like Squadcast, which is similar to Zoom, but which records each person on the call locally and separately so that you can then edit them together later. A more advanced solution is to get a mixing board and a separate digital recorder and then add one or more quality microphones and even attach them onto boom arms that mount on your desk. You can set up a pretty professional looking recording studio this way if you have the space for it. This is actually the solution that I use, but keep in mind that I do have some years of experience with recording and radio work. So while the learning curve isn't insurmountable, you'd have to put some time into it if you're not already familiar with how mixing boards work. In terms of cost, this advanced solution could cost $1,200 or so for the mixer, microphones, the digital recorder, and all the cables and headphones necessary. But certainly a less expensive option is to go with the Rode Podcaster microphone for $229 and use the free Audacity software to do your recordings. There are other decent microphones available as well. You can look on Amazon that are even less expensive. So it really doesn't have to cost a lot to get started. The cloud-based recorder Squadcast that I mentioned previously is only $9 a month for up to 2 hours of recording and $17 a month for up to 5 hours of recording. So what's the format of your podcast? Well, it could just be you by yourself. You just pick a topic and you talk about it. Some people do really well with this, but I think the most interesting podcasts are the ones where 2 or more people are having a discussion. So you might want to do a Q&A style interview or maybe even a roundtable discussion with several people. You'll want to add music to your podcast to make it sound more professional, and you can do this in a few different ways. You can add it live using that mixing board option, which saves some editing time. I like to do this again because I came from a radio background where I played music live underneath what I was saying on the air, so I'm used to that. But it's not too hard to add music in after you've recorded your podcast. in what's called post-production. Just remember to use the auto duck effect to lower the volume of the music when it's over your speaking parts so that the music doesn't overpower the speaking. This means that you can start the music introduction at the beginning of your podcast at full volume, and then when you start speaking, the music volume gets reduced to about 30% or so that the music ducks underneath the voiceover. That's what that means. When you're recording with multiple people, you choose to do it in person by having multiple microphones set up around a table. You can do it over Skype or another conferencing software like Zoom or GoToMeeting or Microsoft Teams, but you might need to get the mixing board solution in order to get the audio from your microphones to go out of your mixing board into your computer so that the person on Zoom can hear you talking, and then you need to get the audio from the other person out of your computer and back to the mixing board so it can be recorded. So it's doable, but it can be a little bit complex for beginners. Again, a simple solution could be just to use the cloud software like Squadcast, where you're connecting to people and recording them online. And this would generally be better than just recording a Zoom meeting, say, although you could do that. The difference is that Squadcast will record each side of the conversation locally, so you get the best audio quality from each person on the call. Here's a screenshot from Adobe Audition, which is audio editing software. Again, you can have each person record locally using their equipment and then use a multi-track editor like this to edit together the different parts. So after you've done the recording, you'll want to edit the audio file. Audacity is available for PCs and Macs, and it's free. Adobe Audition is a paid program, but it's more powerful. Honestly, for editing, I mostly use Audacity. It's simple to use, and I haven't really needed any of the powerful options that Adobe Audition has. So you just trim any extra space from the beginning and the end, you fix any mistakes that you made, remove some of the ums and ahs and long pauses and little mistakes that people make like that. I don't go nuts with that, but I will scan through the audio waveform and just look for obvious places where there's too much of a pause or an sitting by itself where it's easy to edit it out. And then you can also add music to the intro and the outro, as I mentioned before. To get the most out of your podcast for your website and for search engine optimization, you'll want to transcribe the recording. You can use different transcription services for this. They generally cost from around $1 to $1.50 per minute or so. And then you can post the transcript to your blog or a page on your website. You'll want to embed the audio player in the post so that your users can listen to the podcast right on your website rather than sending them off on a link to another website. Here's an example of a blog post with a podcast player on a law firm's website. And what we've done here is we've included an H1 or main heading at the top, which includes keywords. When we start the body of the post with a summary or a description of what the episode is about. And then we follow that with the embedded audio player, and then we put the transcript below the player, along with H2 subheadings periodically. Again, just to get more of the keywords into the text and also to make it scan and skim friendly for great readability. I recommend adding a podcast page to your website. You can put this under a resources menu or a learning center, like in this example. You can have all of the podcasts and descriptions on this page with links to the full blog posts and transcripts. That way, all of your podcast content can be found together in one place. And if you do podcasts on different topics, maybe you have multiple pages where each one of those pages covers all of the podcasts about that particular topic. Audio files need to be hosted somewhere, just like videos. So some of your hosting options include SoundCloud, which is kind of like YouTube for audio, and Libsyn, which has been around for a long time and which offers an RSS forward if you ever need to move your feed to another hosting company. There are plenty of other options though, including all of these. They all have different options and pricing, but they all have that same basic idea, which is just that you upload your audio files, give it a title, and the hosting puts it in a format that can be sent via RSS to the podcast apps. Unless you're really geeky, you don't really ever have to edit your RSS feed directly. The hosting service does that for you. So all you really need is just the URL of your feed, which you can then submit to podcast apps like Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify, so that when a new episode is uploaded to your host, each of those podcast apps gets the latest episode automatically, and any subscribers get the episode downloaded directly to their device. So you only have to do the recording and editing and then upload it once, and then it goes to all of those different podcast apps. This slide has links to a number of the top podcast apps where you can submit your RSS. If you're only going to do one, I would do iTunes. It has the most coverage overall. Adding Stitcher and Spotify is probably next, followed by the rest. In terms of promoting your podcast, there are a number of different things you can do. The first thing you want to do is have at least 3 episodes recorded and uploaded to your hosting before you submit your podcast to the apps, so that you're not submitting a single episode podcast to the app. It shows that you're already committed to at least a few episodes, and you're not one of those people who just uploaded, one episode of a show and then gave up and never did it again. Then the next thing is to stay consistent after that and publish content weekly or even monthly is fine. Whatever schedule you commit to, try to stick with that. That way your audience knows when to expect new episodes. Ask your audience to subscribe, rate, and review your podcast on the podcast apps, which helps your podcast to rank better in search. You can post links to your podcast on social media, and in order to drive traffic to your website, I would again recommend putting up your podcast on a blog post on your website and then sharing the blog post on social media. That way you're driving traffic back to your site. You can utilize podcast advertising. Paid ads within a podcast can be used to sell products and services or even promote other podcasts. This is true native advertising, where often the hosts of the show read the ad scripts so it doesn't interrupt the flow of the show. And domestic podcast ad revenue is expected to exceed $1 billion in 2021. So podcast advertising is getting huge, and radio ads are on the decline. You can use Facebook promoted posts and Twitter ads to increase your reach on social media and get new listeners that way. Also, if your business or firm has an email newsletter, you can send a periodic content update email, which includes any links to podcasts and videos, as well as blog posts, to get your current readers to check out the podcast. Invite influencers and experts on your topic to be a guest on your podcast and talk with you. And then those influencers will share the podcast with their followers, which can help people to find your podcast. And likewise, you can reach out to people who have podcasts that you'd like to be on, and you might be able to be a guest on their podcast and promote your own. A final promotion idea is to join a podcast network. Here's an example of one called the Legal Talk Network, which has a number of different podcasts. And actually, there's a lot more than just what's pictured here on the screen about various legal topics. By joining a podcast network, you have the opportunity to get your podcast promoted on other podcasts on the network. You could certainly reach out to a podcast network like this with just an idea for a podcast, but they'll probably want to see that you're a proven podcaster and even that you already have a bit of a following on your own. So create the best podcast that you can, try to get a following, and then consider trying to join a podcast network like this to further increase your audience and take it to the next level. Another thing you can do with your podcast is to create content for your audience that goes beyond just the podcast itself. One thing we do here at McDougall Interactive is we take all of the transcripts from podcasts on a related topic and we rewrite them into prose format and put them into an ebook that we then put on a website as a call to action and a lead generation tool where people have to, give you their name and email address in order to download the ebook. From there, you can even add additional podcasts or combine ebooks together into a larger book that you then publish and print, and either you give it away as a sales tool or sell it on Amazon. Ebooks and books both make your firm look like a thought leader and an expert on your topic. So a few takeaways about podcasting. Google loves FAQ and Q&A type content, and the interviews that you get in a podcast format are perfect for that since Google can read the transcript on your website. You want to make sure that your content solves problems and answers client questions, again, making you a thought leader. Podcasting has a lot less competition than other types of content like blogs and video, and it connects you in a really personal way to your audience. And finally, in addition to generating blog content through podcasting, you can pull together multiple episodes of your podcast to create ebooks and books that can be lead generation tools. All right, so now we're going to take a couple of questions if people have them before we move on and have Rachel show us some examples of firms using podcasting. John, do we have any questions yet?
Yeah, we have one. Any data on whether lawyer podcasts have produced clients? And yes, we have largely through doing a good amount of podcasting where we're tying it to SEO through the transcripts and optimizing blog posts with all that content. And in some ways, more importantly, or it's critical to also do a bunch of blog posts and podcasts with the transcripts on the same topic. So dog bite law, there's in a personal injury zone is one example where we get many leads, millions of dollars in leads through the SEO, which a good chunk of content's generated through podcasting and video content. So it's not always as clear as they're calling from the podcast directly saying this is what drove the lead, but it's very clear that the blog posts with the transcripts are showing up in analytics as significant pieces of content as part of the overall ranking keywords for the website. And then leads are coming in for those topics, and then it's tied back. Videos, we have with YouTube in particular, we have even had some clients for law firms come in where they said, it was specifically the YouTube video that drove me to call, which is awesome. We love to hear that from our clients, obviously. Less so for podcasts calling in saying, I listened to the podcast. But people in leads have mentioned listening to podcasts, when they fill out a form and that kind of thing. So it's not always as clear cut as it might seem, but if your goal is to get more SEO and drive up your thought leadership, if you look in Google Analytics at all the podcasts that you've done over time and see all the keywords that you're coming up for, and that that's as they say, a rising tide lifts all boats, or lifts a boat, however they say that. That multitude of content clearly helps the SEO go up, and Google really likes it. And without that, you're not going to get a ton of leads. From SEO. If SEO is your goal, consistent content will definitely drive leads. So. Hope that answers that. And that was the only question through the system. Again, if you want to ask questions now or at the end or throughout, I think just chime in on the question section, and John will, after he talks at the end, we'll do that again, and Rachel can answer some after she goes. So Rachel is up next. Take it away, Rachel.
Great, thanks, John.
Yeah.
So given that I have the opportunity to work with a variety of podcasts at the NLR, one of the things I want to talk about today is how to choose a topic. There are two strategies to start with that include choosing whether you want your podcast to have a broad topic or a narrow topic. You can determine that based on where you see your podcast going. For example, do you want your podcast to have a broad appeal, or do you want to stick to a niche? Both are great strategies that can help drive results, which I will touch on in just a few minutes. So your goals can also help determine what topics you choose. If you want to rank on podcasting services and get a lot of downloads, choosing a broad topic that will attract a wide audience is a good place to start. in addition to linking your expertise to timely topics. If you want to focus on SEO, choosing a narrow topic would be a good place to start, and using keyword tools like SEMrush and Moz can help with that. Also, you're going to want to make sure to pay attention to what your peers are doing and think about how you can do it better. This can include doing some research on what the top podcasts are in your field, as well as including transcripts and forwarding the podcast well, and integrating your podcast with your other blogs. These are good places to start. So to give you a better idea of some of these strategies, I'll share a few examples of some of our most viewed podcasts that our clients have published in the National Law Review, and I'll talk a little bit about what makes them successful, starting with the following podcast. So this podcast is from St. Louis University Law School, and it's called Policing the Police, Licensing and Decertification for Police Officers. This is our first example, and it's our top podcast for 2020. This one is interesting because while it has been on our site for a few years, it gained a lot of traction due to it covering a very timely topic from this past year, which is police misconduct. Additionally, while the topic is timely, it also has implications for law and a general audience that is interested in this topic. It also includes a transcript and is easy to read and is well formatted, which is a theme you'll see through all the examples I'm going to give. So next up, we'll look at something a little bit more different. It's a little more niche. So this is a more narrow topic, and it's rapid transit zones in Miami-Dade County. This is from January of last year. And while the last podcast was focused on a very timely topic, this one focuses on a more niche topic that is relevant to a certain area in Miami. The running theme with these podcasts is present here as well. It includes a transcript and has the podcast embedded at the top, which makes it easier for the reader to access the podcast. Another thing I think it has going for it, it's only 23 minutes long. You're not really asking for too much of your listeners' time, since a lot of people listen to podcasts while they're doing other things. And yet in that time frame, you're able to cover a decent amount of information. So that was just an example of something that's more narrow, more niche. The next example covers something a little bit more broad. This one is about attorney mindfulness amid COVID-19. So a very, very relevant topic to the times we're living in. And this one is similar to the first, as it covers the very timely topic, and it targets attorneys in particular, giving them actionable information. So while some podcasts have a very broad audience, this one is focusing on attorneys in specific. And this one stands out with its extensive introduction and a transcript with plenty of keywords. The next podcast, while it has a similar approach, it has a little bit more of a global focus. This one focuses specifically on digital health in India, and it's unique because it covers topics that aren't specific to the US, which really helps it stand out and establish this one as an expert source in its niche. Another interesting thing about this podcast is that while it doesn't have a transcript, it has a pretty extensive introduction and outline that provides plenty of information on the content of the podcast, and it teases the listener to click on the podcast and listen it to learn more. And our last example is a little bit more niche. This one is covering a specific, very niche part of the law, tax law. This is section 962. The title makes it pretty clear that it's covering a newsworthy development, which is relevant to the audience it's trying to target, which are individuals taxed under this specific tax regime. And like the previous podcast, it includes an introduction as well as a transcript. So with all that being said, I think the key takeaway here is that there are myriad ways to be successful in choosing podcast topics. You can go either narrow or broad. What really makes the difference here is that the topic is relevant for the audience you're trying to target, and that podcasts include a transcript or an introduction. So if anyone has questions, I'd be happy to answer them now or at the end of the presentation.
Yeah, so no questions at the moment, but we can answer more at the end. So take it away, John.
All right, thanks, John. So we'll move on to talking about YouTube video optimization. So why would you want to use video? Well, Google really likes video, and they like to show blended results in the search results. You can see the example on the right where I searched for how to tie a bow tie, and Google gave me images and videos first before even showing standard search results. Google does this on a search by search basis when they feel that your search query can best be answered by images or videos. There's also less competition with video compared to blog posts and other website pages. even with those hundreds of hours of video being uploaded to YouTube every minute, like I talked about before, there's still room for videos about particular topics to show up in the search results. YouTube is actually the #2 search engine in the world after Google itself. And a lot of people are going to YouTube and using their search feature to find answers to questions that they have and to watch videos about topics they're interested in. Video is great for increasing brand awareness and building conversations around your brand and firm. It's also great for solving problems that your clients and potential clients have in answering their questions. According to HubSpot, 81% of customers have been convinced to buy a product or a service by watching a video. 97% of marketers say video has helped increase user understanding of their service or product, which in turn increases brand awareness. And 80% say video has increased dwell time on their website. And we know that time on site is an engagement metric, which is part of Google's algorithm. Video also humanizes you and your firm. People want to work with other people that they know, people they like and trust. And we know that 70% of communication is body language and 23% is voice tone and inflection. So video conveys a lot more than just the words that are being said. We did some user tests on one of our legal clients' websites, and when they played a video on the site, they said something like, "They seemed so nice, and I can tell I'd be comfortable working with them." That kind of impact can be huge, especially in an industry where people are often under a lot of stress when they hire a lawyer, and they really want to be comfortable with the firm or the person that they're hiring. Video can also help with your PR, including getting on television. If you're looking to get on TV, local TV wants to know that you're good on camera and that you're knowledgeable and personable. So being able to show them your YouTube channel and help prove that you'll be comfortable with the medium is important. And then national TV wants to see that you've done local TV. So ultimately starting your YouTube channel can help you get on national TV if that's part of what your PR plan is. Recording your videos is the first step, but then you do still need to host your video files somewhere. Obviously, YouTube is the big one here, but there are other hosting platforms like Wistia and Vimeo. In general, YouTube is better for visibility in organic search results. Your YouTube video will also be visible when people do searches directly on YouTube. And YouTube also has integration with social media like Facebook and Twitter by default. So it's really easy to share your videos across all your social channels. Wistia and Vimeo are a little bit different because you don't go to Vimeo to look up videos like you do with YouTube. It's more of a hosting platform, allowing you to embed the videos on your website. They do generally have better analytics, although YouTube's recent updates have improved that greatly. They also have good tracking and integration with marketing software like HubSpot and Marketo. And Wistia and Vimeo generally have more customizable video players that allow you to add more types of calls to action to your videos. Finally, by having your videos only on your website, that ensures that any links and social shares will point people back to your site and drive traffic to your website as opposed to driving traffic to YouTube. But that's one reason why we recommend publishing your YouTube videos on your blog or your website pages and not having them only on YouTube. And although they deny it, Google has essentially whitelisted YouTube videos in search, making it harder for sites to get self-hosted videos in the search results. Google says this is because they optimize their videos better for search, but it amounts to the same thing. You can see this video search for personal injury law where all of the top sites were from YouTube. Most of the sites that rank well in Google for videos that aren't hosted on YouTube are news sites and sites that are almost exclusively video content. This July 2020 Wall Street Journal analysis shows that 83% of videos in the search results carousel came from YouTube. And they said that Google's searches placed YouTube videos first in video carousel results by an overwhelming margin compared to other video platforms. Phil Nottingham, a brand and video marketing strategist, said in July of 2014, as of now, if you have an SEO strategy that doesn't include YouTube, you're doing it wrong. And yes, that was over 6 years ago. When choosing your hosting platform, it's helpful to ask yourself if the video makes sense when it's viewed outside of the context of a page on your website, and also if your video is valuable or entertaining for an audience unfamiliar with your brand. If that's the case and your content is educational and informative and generally useful for anyone, YouTube is likely the best choice. But if the videos are really only intended for your customers and website visitors, then a solution like Vimeo or Wistia might make more sense, since the broader reach of a YouTube audience isn't the most important thing in that case. Here are a couple of tips for optimizing your YouTube videos. The first is to use keywords in the title. If we're targeting the keyword wrongful death lawsuit, for example, we'll want to make sure that we include that in the title of the video. You'll also want to include your keywords and your full website URL in the description. Although the description text in YouTube is more for users and less of a ranking factor, you can put a link to your website here by including the full https:// in the address so that it becomes a link automatically. Also, make sure it's near the beginning of the description so that it appears before that Show More button. Otherwise, people will have to click Show More before they even see that link to your website. Next, you'll want to transcribe the video's content and upload the transcript to the closed captions in YouTube. You'll also want to ideally post the transcript to your blog along with the embedded YouTube video, similar to what I was talking about with podcasts, so that you're adding more content to your website. And note that this is not duplicate content, which is generally bad for Google. Google doesn't like it when you have the same content on multiple pages. It's because the closed captions are in a different format and they serve a different purpose than the website text. So Google is okay with it in this case. Closed captions are good for users who have the sound turned off, for example, when they're at work. And it's also good for the hearing impaired and could potentially even be required for certain types of compliance. The closed captions are also indexed by Google as the text version of what's being said in the video. Otherwise, Google doesn't really know what the content of your video is. They don't even trust their own automatic closed captions that they add. And the automatic closed captions that Google adds to your videos are not indexed by Google, mainly because Google knows they suck. Check out a few of these automatic closed captions from YouTube. The total, I think the book has nice enough the 0 to take a 7 isn't super. This one is very important for your, however, even if you'd be in Pine Car insurance for years. Apparently they're selling Boy Scout Pinewood Derby insurance or something. This one isn't as good as yours, so don't get is dead letter from hunters. You can. I don't even remember what that one was actually talking about. So you can see why you need to edit the automatic closed captions. Some of them are really hilarious and terrible, and replace those with a real transcript of your videos. To edit the closed captions, you simply go to your YouTube studio, click the video you want to edit, and click the subtitles menu on the left. That will show you the current video subtitles. Note how this one says English automatic under language on the left side. That's how you know that that's just the automatic transcript that Google put on that video and not something that we uploaded or edited. If you click duplicate and edit over on the right side, you'll be able to edit this subtitle. That pops open this editor window where you can simply edit the text. You can even hit play on the video over on the right side and listen to the video while you're typing. And if you click that pause while typing box, it will automatically pause the video while you're typing what's being said and then resume when you stop typing. When you're done, you can click Assign Timings at the top to adjust the details of exactly what text appears at what point in the video, so you can really fine tune it. And when you have everything the way that you want it, you click Publish. And then I recommend taking one final step and deleting the old automatic subtitles, just to make sure that your new edited subtitles are the only ones on the video, so there's no confusion. Another way to do this, if you have a transcript of your video already, is to look under the Details tab for your video and click Upload Subtitles/CC, which stands for closed captions. From there, you can upload a transcript file. And
I think we lost John there. Can people?
can you hear me now?
Oh, there you are, John.
Oh,
Yep.
sorry about that. Where'd you lose me?
People can upload their captions.
Okay. So another way to do it here is to, if you have the transcript already, go to Upload Subtitles/CC, and from there you can upload a transcript file. This can be in the transcript format with timings already set, or you can just use a .txt text file without timings, in which case YouTube will assign the timings itself, and then you can always edit those later. So to get the most out of your video for SEO purposes, again, similar to the podcasts, you should post the video on your website. Like the podcasts, we find that the blog works well for this. So you include a heading with the video name, followed by a summary or description above the video, then embed the video under that, and then post the transcript under the video. And again, it's okay to use that same transcript as the closed captions because they're in different formats. So if you're already transcribing the video for the subtitles, you might as well post it to your website as well and get the most out of that content. If you've already waited for Google to do the automatic transcript, and then you go in and you edit that automatic transcript to make it better, you can even just cut and paste that transcript and then go and put it on your website. So you don't even have to use a transcription service if you don't want to. You will have to do a little bit of editing, but it's a simple way to do that. And most videos are a lot shorter than podcasts, so it's not too hard to fix up a transcript of a video that's a couple of minutes or 5 minutes long. So here are the takeaways for video. Number 2 search engine in the world, YouTube is. So if you're not on YouTube, you might be missing out. Video humanizes you for potential clients and makes them feel more comfortable working with you. And then it can also be the first step to getting on local and national TV. And the vast number of videos appearing in Google search results are from YouTube. So definitely use YouTube unless your content really only makes sense in the context of your own website. And go and fix those closed captions today.
All right,
Thanks.
fantastic. Good job, John. We appreciate all those great tips, and we welcome questions. And we don't have any other questions at the moment, but I'm just going to share a quick story and then of a client, and then if anyone wants to chime in with questions, we're happy to answer them. So this is not a lawyer client, but a dentist, and she's a green dentist, like a holistic or biological dentist. And we told her how great it can be to do podcasts and videos. She got on board with the podcasting. We did that, and that's going well. And then she said, well, you know, we're in Boston, the Boston area, and she's in California. So she said, you know, how could we get the video done? And pre-COVID, we do fly to do video, you know, to some attorneys in Texas and St. Louis and different places that, you know, and driving around to Maine and New Hampshire, different areas around us. But we said, you know, if you want to get a camera and do the raw video and give that to us, we can edit it. She said, okay, I'll do 100 videos for you that you can use for SEO. And we said, 100, okay, great, that's awesome. And you know, we'll, you know, not holding our breath maybe, because that's a pretty big task. she comes back with 100 videos. Well, first she did, I don't know, John, what did she do? Maybe a dozen at first or a few to show us what she
Yeah,
was
she
doing?
did 10 or 20 as a sample. Yeah, and then she went back and once we said, yeah, those look like pretty decent, and we gave her a few tips, like the background that she was using was a little bit distracting, and there were some other tips that we
I
gave her.
think you
She was
said
kind
she
of
was
far
standing
away
too
from the
close to the
camera.
background too. So
Yeah, she was a little too close,
the
she
focus,
kind of blended in with the focus into the background. So we gave her a few tips, and then she
the
went and
audio.
recorded another
Yeah.
80 of them or something. Yeah.
I think the audio was one of the other tips, right? Because did she end up getting a separate microphone?
I don't think she did in that case, but I think what we had her do was just be a little bit closer to the camera. She was a little far away at first, so it was very echoey and difficult to hear her, but we made her get a little bit closer and make it more of a headshot kind of video. So it would like just, her shoulders up. And so she was closer to the microphone, and that made it better.
Whereas before you saw the whole, fancy wallpaper in her office and
Right.
her, all of her standing there and then a little too close and it blended together and you couldn't really hear it that well. So there are some, with fine tuning of, getting your own videos done, you can either, do that on your own as, if you're a solo attorney or, or if you're a firm and you don't have budget to have an agency do everything. One option is to just get the raw footage of your attorneys talking and then give that to an agency or like us or a video editing company and have them put it up on YouTube. Put your logo in the title screen. So as the video starts, it's branded for you, and then cut out any mistakes or edit as needed, and then put your logo at the end, etc. And the end result for her is after about a year of working with her, we have 115 pieces of content. And I would say it's maybe 70% video, 20% podcasts, and 10% article writing that we're doing. And when we first started, we were going to maybe write a lot more. We didn't know that she would knock out 100 videos or 120 videos. So all of those videos for both ADA legal compliance, so that everyone has access with the transcript, that couldn't see, if you can't see the video, you get the transcript. So it's important for that. But because of the volumes of good text from the videos and the podcasts, she's now ranking #1 for one of her absolute best terms, #5 for her second best term, and subtopics like mercury fillings and why they might be bad, just crushing it on some of these niche topics. We've done a lot of content on that, and with it, so you can do some of this on your own, and you don't have to do all of it. And then why would you do it as opposed to just hiring someone to write or having the attorneys write? As you probably a lot of you know or have been through, it's not always easy to get anyone to write, much less a busy attorney whose time is super valuable. And not only is it good to get the thought leadership and the voice of the attorney so that the style and the tone of the content and the what's in the content is from that deep knowledge that the attorneys have, but as John said, physically, like you're actually hearing the voice of the attorneys. But one step beyond that is all of that content then creates this repository of great content. Sure, that's great for Google, but then if you do want someone to write for your attorneys, it's a lot easier for bloggers. Like we have some retired attorneys and different people that really can write for lawyers, but that's always a challenge, right? Because it's certainly like something like intellectual property law and certain things that are super complicated that only the attorney really should be phrasing certain things. But if the attorneys are speaking and audio and video, and we have 100 either podcasts or videos in this cumulative batch of content, we can either just turn that into good ebook content for you, create the cover design, lay it out, proofread it, turn it into prose, or even springboard from that, so that all of that repository becomes fodder for us to have our writers writing without just researching on the internet about the topic. Again, trademarks, copyrights, and things like that. One attorney might have their own spin on how to address that, or immigration law, or whatever it might be. And writers rely a lot on research. So you might say, okay, the attorney wants these 5 next blog posts. We have to go write. And the internet is full of sometimes misinformation. So if our writers are writing and they're not as knowledgeable as the attorney on that topic, if they can go to this repository and listen to the podcast and watch the videos, then when they're going and researching on the internet to do the crafting of new spin-off content to that main body of work, it's much more likely to be really in line with what you're going to be looking for good quality content, which is essential these days. Google tracks your bounce rate, so if people, the article got people to the site, but then it's not that great, and people hit the back button, that actually now can potentially impact your SEO. And so anyway, so just we're big believers in podcasts and videos, and even seeing recently that with the advent of content high quality being critical, we're just doing more and more of it, and then writing as a springboard from it. So we highly encourage that. And again, we thank everyone for coming on the webinar today. And a little bit of logistics here at the end. Once you leave the webinar, you'll receive a survey on the presentation, and we'd appreciate if you complete that and provide feedback. You'll also receive a follow-up email within 24 to 48 hours with a link to review. You can view the recording of today's webinar, as well as get a PDF of the slide deck. If you'd like to watch all 3 of the webinars in the series or get all the slide decks, check out legalmarketingreview.com/downloads that I think you're seeing on the screen there. We've got marketing plan templates and different things in there for you to check out. Buy our book on Amazon if you get a chance, all about content marketing and SEO, with the content marketing section talks a little bit about podcasts and videos. And then if you'd like a free consultation, say a half hour or so on setting up a podcast or doing YouTube optimization, just shoot us an email or give us a buzz. And if you want a competitive analysis where you give us 4 of your competitors, or ask us to find 4 similar sites, say you're immigration attorney in Boston, and we can certainly find 4 that are ranking well for, in quotes, immigration attorney Boston, MA. And then we will do some analysis and give that to you for free to show you who is ranking really well and how many keywords they have in Google compared to you and what you have. And happy to share some of that stuff with you. And if you have any ideas on other webinars, feel free to reach out. We're really enjoying the series with National Law Review, and we're hoping to do some more, maybe on some social media or LinkedIn or marketing planning and things like that. And we do have in April and May Social Law Library in Boston. We've done some webinars with them. We're going to be doing more, so stay tuned, and we'll shoot an email out when we get the official dates for that. And on behalf of McDougall Interactive, the National Law Review, and our presenters, thanks for joining us today, and have an awesome day.